Hey everybody, today I thought I'd do some live streaming as I edit my newest video. I'm using Final Cut Pro for the video itself, and for the editing, I'm using a Stream Deck Plus. I've got Cut, Blade, Expand Audio Components, Trim Start, Trim End, Select Delete, and Play as the buttons, and then I can zoom in and adjust the speed with the knobs. So the first thing I do is just trim the start. And it looks like I probably forgot to unmute that channel. Cast or live stream. There are so many options out there, but there's one that flies under the radar and provides an insane value for the price, and that's the Focusrite Vocaster. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the interface, why I think it's the best option for two-person shows, and why you might not want to wait to get one. And I'll include some affiliate links in the description, and using these links helps support the channel. So, about 3.5 years ago, Focusrite introduced their Vocaster range of audio interfaces. Actually, I realize I forgot to do some color correction, so we'll do that real quick. Then I like to bring the blacks and the shadows down. And we'll zoom in a little bit. Raise the shot up just a touch. That's a little too far. Okay, that looks good. Now we'll move on. Which are aimed directly at content creators. They came in two flavors, the Vocaster 1 and the Vocaster 2. The Vocaster 1 is for solo creators, and you can connect one mic to it. The Vocaster 2 is for two-people interviews or shows with two co-hosts. You can connect two mics into it, and you have two headphone ports. Along with that, you get an auto gain feature, which helps to ensure that your gain is set well, and you also get a mute button for each mic, and you get some built-in processing or preset voice profiles, I think they're called. And along with Loopback, that's included in the software, you've got a pretty comprehensive package. Along with Loopback, that's included. Along with Loopback, that's included in the software. I can probably shorten that up a little bit more. Along with Loopback, that's included in the software, you've got a pretty comprehensive package for a content creator. When the Vocaster launched, the comprehensive package for a content creator. When the Vocaster launched, the package for a content creator. When the Vocaster launched, the Vocaster 1 was $199 and the Vocaster 2 was $299, which I believe was higher than the Scarlett Solo and 2i2 interfaces at that time. This was probably their first misstep. Focusrite priced it higher, and while they did add some nice-to-have features for content creators and podcasters, it just wasn't enough for them to pay a premium. Focusrite also suffered from, let's just call it internet lore, especially when we consider what the internet was like in 2022 when these were released. The internet was still kind of behind the times and running on all of the ancient podcast recommendations that when these were released. The internet was still kind of behind the times and running on all the ancient podcast recommendations that we're finally starting to move away from. You know, things like the best, things like the best, you know, things like the best, things like the best, starting to move away from. You know, things like the best podcast mic is a Blue Yeti. When it came to audio interfaces, the Focusrite 2i2 was the choice amongst budget-minded podcasters. Focusrite couldn't really break through that written-in-stone recommendation with their Vocasters. Vocasters. Let's talk about what they're Vocasters. Let's talk about what makes this such a good interface for content creators, especially at this price point. First, you get 24-bit 48 kilohertz recording, which should be standard in audio interfaces these days, but there are still some devices that are limited to 16-bit 44.1. Next, looking at the Vocaster 2, you get 2 mic preamps. Each mic has its own mute button. Each person gets their own independent headphone ports. And you get a big volume knob in the middle, which is for adjusting the gain, or let me backtrack. Each headphone gets its own volume knob. And then you've got the big knob here for adjusting the gain for each mic. But having those the gain for each mic. But having those for adjusting the gain for each mic. But having those independent headphone ports is huge because with the 2i2 and so many other audio interfaces, you generally have to use a headphone splitter to connect 2 headphones. And that means both people connected are stuck using the same volume. That big. And a lot of times people need different volume. And that means both people connected are stuck using the same volume. And a lot of times people need different volumes for their headphones. Some people monitor way too loudly, and others don't need nearly as much volume. So it's nice for each person to be able to control that. So now for the stuff that probably matters more to the content creators, you get 2 ways to connect your phone to it. There's more to the content creators. You get 2 ways to connect your phone to it. You have Bluetooth and a 3.5 or 1/8 inch TRRS jack. And in addition to that, you can send output from the Vocaster out to your camera if you're recording video. The Vocaster provides 2 channels of loopback control via their Vocaster Hub software. Loopback is basically just a fancy term for routing audio from your computer into your recordings, live streams, or coaching calls. So to wrap things up on the Vocaster 2, we have 1/4 inch outputs for your speakers. And it won't focus. That's what these two, there we go. We've got our outputs here, our mic preamps, our phone connectors, USB here, your camera output, and we have a power button, which is a nice touch because so many audio interfaces in this price range, or really in any price range, don't have power buttons. The Vocasters are. So a lot of time I just spend trimming down gaps between sections and adjusting the timing of that. Have power buttons. The Vocasters because if I'm already making a cut, might as well tighten it up. Really, in any price range, don't have power buttons. The Vocasters are bus powered via USB, so you don't need a secondary power connector. In use, the Vocaster is pretty easy to set up and use. It provides pretty much everything you need for recording a 1 or 2 person podcast or a live stream. I have a more in-depth video here, somewhere like this, where I compare the Vocaster. Set a marker to remember that's where I want to link a video. Somewhere like this, where I compare the Vocaster 2 against the 2i2. But when it comes to recommending an audio interface to clients, the Vocasters are my first recommendation regardless of price. I feel it compares very well with the Rodecaster Duo at a fraction of the price. Unless you're someone who needs sound pads to play sound effects during your show, the Vocaster is going to be a much better option. The Duo, the Rodecasters in general, they have a lot of bells and whistles. To be a much better option. The Rodecasters in general, they have a lot of bells and whistles, but so much of that stuff doesn't get used by your typical podcaster. And that's why I feel that the podcaster. And that's why I feel that the Vocaster just blows everything else out of the water. You get a simple audio device with a great user interface. The software is well thought out and easy to use. And I mentioned at the beginning that you may not want to wait to get this. Or I mentioned at the beginning that you may not. And I mentioned and easy to use. I mentioned at the beginning that you may not want to wait to get a Vocaster. I mentioned at the out and easy to use. I mentioned at the beginning that you may not want to wait to get a Vocaster. That's because Focusrite seems to have started blowing these out last year at super discounted prices. $49 for the Vocaster 1 and $99 for the Vocaster 2. You simply will not find better 1 and 2 channel audio interfaces at these prices. They've typically been at those prices the majority of the last year. But now as we enter Black Friday 2025, they've slashed those prices even further. This is even further. Further. This is even further. So as we can see here, they're down to $39 and $69 respectively. This tells me. Let's zoom in on that. Sorry, things are getting a little sluggish on my end. Trying to stream and edit in 4K seems to be asking a bit much for my computer. At least using Meld. I have to remember where the zoom in is. On the entire thing. Effectively. This tells me that. So we'll just zoom in on this section right here. No, not picture in picture. We'll call that good. So as we can see here, they're down to $39 and $69 respectively. This tells me that they are probably, definitely, most likely blowing these out. And my guess is that they'll be discontinued once they run out of stock. I got mine last year around Black Friday, and the date on it is June 2022. Looking at the serial number, it looks like it was probably number 2846 or 2846. That's not really a good sign when 2.5 years after release, they're still selling first month production models. It seems like maybe they thought that these would sell like hotcakes and made a ton of them, but then they didn't do a whole lot of marketing that I saw. No marketing means they never broke through that online lure I talked about earlier with their 2i2, which still rules when a podcaster asks what interface to get. But really, and $69 respectively. But really, now is... I don't want that. Podcaster asks what interface to get. It's fun when stuff starts getting sluggish when you're editing. Dollars respectively. But really, now is the time to grab one before they're gone. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Okay, now that we've got the editing done on the video, I need to export that audio. So I'm exporting the XML. I'm not even sure where I started this project. Let me find out. Okay, that's why. I'll just have to start a new window for it, or new folder. I always put the XMLs in a renders folder. Now we will open up Hindenburg. And apparently I need to set up the scene with Hindenburg. Because it does not like what was there. So give me just a second. Problem with Meld is it doesn't have the windows organized in any specific way. So I have to scroll through every single tab and page I have open on my screen, which anybody who knows me knows I have way too many things open at any given time. So trying to find the right window and the right screen. Is Hindenburg even open? Yes, the page is called Untitled Hindenburg Pro. Now it's completely locked me out, so I have to add it all over. Display capture. This is the joys of using new software to stream live. Okay, there we are. I'm assuming you want to see this a little bit bigger. Okay, so now let's bring in our audio. So the first thing I do is want to select everything. We'll merge it, and then we'll run the loudness normalization. Each headphone, or let me backtrack. I'm just scrolling to look for little disfluencies that I know I tend to have. I'm not seeing much in this one, so we'll go ahead and just mix it. That's the right mic, is yeah. It's the problem with using so many different mics and having recently switched, trying to remember which one I used. Two-person podcast or live stream. There are so many options out there, but there's one that flies under the radar and provides an insane value for the price, and that's the Focusrite Vocaster. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the interface, why I think. Okay, so I do have a little bit of noise, so I'll leave VoiceX on. I always have mouth clicks, EQs preset, comp. Should be fine. I didn't do any mouse clicking in this one, so I don't need the smart gate and the loudness meter. So we should be good to go with this. Two-person podcast or live stream. There are so many options out there, but there's one that flies under the radar. And last thing is to add a limiter just to keep those peaks under control. There should be more than enough headroom that we're not really clipping, but the true peak, we can still kind of run up against the, come in above -1. Okay. I can't even remember what I'm looking for. I just used the fab filter, set it to -1. I'm not adding any gain. I want it to be transparent. So I just leave the settings as is. We're not down. I don't need to worry about anything else. You for the price, and that's the Focusrite Vocaster. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the interface, why I think that's good enough. We'll export. Again, I'm going back to my renders folder. And I hate the Hindenburg defaults to showing no format. The process, and don't pay attention to that. I'm not sure why we just buffered, or looks like I dropped out for a minute. But we want stereo, Apple lossless. Now we'll render that. And if anybody out there is watching, if you've got questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. But it shouldn't take too much longer to finish the export. But I like using Hindenburg in this way because it makes the audio so much easier to work with. Just bring it in, merge everything into one track, apply the loudness normalization, bring up my preset for mixing, turn on and off anything that's needed or not needed, and then basically do a quick QC, and then we're ready to go. That VoiceX does add a little bit of time to the rendering. But I found that VoiceX is the most transparent when it comes to kind of moderate noise and reverb reduction. You can run that pretty high and it's still pretty transparent. I'd wager most people wouldn't hear anything in terms of artifacting or reduction in audio quality using VoiceX. Let's see if I realized that I was sending 2 feeds out to YouTube. Let's see if it helps turning one of them off with the lag that I was getting. Okay, so we should be almost done there. Let's switch back to Final Cut Pro. Okay, so now I have to find Final Cut Pro on my computer. Need to open Finder. Drag in the audio track. Okay, my mouse is completely freaked out now. Okay, now I've got it back. And I'm not sure what's going on with the stream, so I'm sorry if we keep dropping out. But let's go back to Final Cut Pro. Quit Hindenburg. Just so we're taking up fewer resources. Yes, I want to save it. Save. Now close. Back to Final Cut Pro. Now we've got the... Did I switch and meld? Yeah, we're on Final Cut Pro. It's tough juggling all these windows when going live. So now that we've got our cleaned up audio track, we bring it down here. I like to check timing in a couple of spots, usually at the beginning and at the end, to make sure we're in sync. In this video, if you have any questions. Okay, so we're good there. So I can turn off the audio on the main track. Add some nice to have features for. Okay, so I need to add a little bit here. Let's see. We need to add a subscribe. Let's find a good place for that. It just wasn't enough for them to pay a premium. Focusrite also suffered from, especially when we consider what the internet. The internet was still, you know, things like the interfaces. The Focusrite 2i2 was the choice amongst budget-minded podcasters. Focusrite. Trying to find a good spot to drop it in. Written in stone recommendation with their Vocasters. Let's talk about what makes this such a good interface for content creators, especially at the... That seems like a good spot right there. Let's talk. Their Vocasters. Let's talk about what makes this such a... Okay, so that's about it. We'll export. Well, that's exporting. I don't have it set up. Let's see if I can get a quick scene set up with MacWhisper. So bear with me for just a second. Okay, that's a little frustrating. I can't build a scene while keeping me on. So let's see, where can I steal something? Okay, so let's do this. Now we'll add display capture. MacWhisper. I use MacWhisper to transcribe so that I can use that transcription to generate timestamps, descriptions, all of that stuff. What is MacWhisper showing? And sometimes it's with Meld trying to find, like I said earlier, the app you want on screen. It's a pain because not only do you have to find it, you have to know what it's actually, what the title of the app is showing to Meld. Sometimes it's just the app name, sometimes it's a file name. So I have to scroll through. Let's try this. Sometimes if I just quit it, it'll pop up at the bottom or top of the list. No, that's not what I wanted. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show this then, because I just can't find MacWhisper. So sorry about this if you're really interested. I wasn't sure if I'd have enough time to get to the transcription portion. Let me try one more thing. Unfortunately, that didn't help. I was hoping that maybe restarting would refresh. Yeah, so we're going to skip that part. I'll just go ahead and get it started on my end. So I take the M4A file that I just transcribed, I dropped it into Vocaster, or into MacWhisper. It's transcribing. It's done transcribing already. So I'll save that transcription. I save that into the same renders folder. So now I should be able to set up a screen share of Gemini. If I can find it. Let's just do this. Oh, so now Mac Whisper shows up. But this is what it looks like. And then we've got our segments. The transcript shows up as just a big block of text. That's not really useful for generating transcripts. Segments are much smaller, much better timestamps. So I just export this. Now let's see if I can find Gemini. There we go. Make sure I'm logged into the right account. Okay, so I've got a gem up here, which is for my YouTube descriptions. So I just grab my transcript file, drop it in there, hit enter, let it work for a minute. I haven't tried this with the new Gemini 3.0, so it'll be interesting to see how this works out. So it gives me reminders. I mentioned affiliate links in the description at 30 seconds. Make sure those are posted. Comparison video link is 627. Don't forget to link that card. Then I ask it to give me a bunch of title options. So I just go through and find the one that I think is going to work best. I'd probably go with number 1, Focusrite Vocaster 2 review. I'd probably change that because it's not really a review, and call it like the best budget podcast interface in 2025. Maybe the perfect audio interface for 1 or 2 person podcasts. Actually, this audio interface is 75% off, and it's amazing. That one might work really well. And then if I wanted a more Curiosity Gap type title, we've got these. The audio interface no one talks about but should. Focusrite made a mistake with this and you benefit. I mean, these are actually really good. This is the best I've seen in the Curiosity Gap from Gemini. So 3.0 is definitely doing better with this stuff. I can't believe this interface is only $69 now. Don't buy a Blue Yeti until you watch this. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything. And then I also have 10 options for problem agitate solution. Usually these don't work well, but sometimes they do. Okay, so the video is done. Let me get that uploaded real quick, or start the upload. Okay, so I've got that uploading so that we can start using this stuff. So let me change the screen share. Well, let's finish going through Gemini real quick. We were at the problem agitation solution. Like I said, these usually don't work well. Video description. I have to be honest, there are a million audio interfaces out there, but the Focusrite Vocaster is flying under the radar right now. When this thing launched back in 2022, Focusrite kind of messed up. Okay, this part's not so good. I'll have to rewrite that. True independent. Here's why the Vocaster 2 is an absolute steal right now. Independent monitoring, Bluetooth and phone connectivity, camera output, auto gain and mute, insane price drop. Again, it reminds me, or has links mentioned, and insert the affiliate link. We've got all of our tags. We've got thumbnail ideas, thumbnail text ideas. So the thumbnail idea is just the image itself. And then the thumbnail text is the caption for it. And then we've got our time-stamped chapter markers. So let me change the screen share over to YouTube. Okay, that's not what I was looking for. Let's get rid of that. And for some reason, it's not updating. The list of screen captures is not updating yet. Okay, so let's, no, that's a new tab. That should show up. Unfortunately, Meld is not perfect when it comes to a lot of stuff. If you aren't aware, I've been using Ecamm for this stuff, but it's just not working for interview shows. Like our stream with Matt, we've tried 2 weeks in a row and it has not. He keeps getting kicked out, so we haven't been able to complete a stream in about a month. And that's, I'm just at the end of using Ecamm, so I'm trying new options. And that is starting with Meld because I'd already tested it out. It's not even at version 1.0, but it's grown a lot since I used it last time. But it's still missing some of that refinement you get with I'm drawing a blank, with more mature, well-developed software. I think it will get there, but it's not there right now. So yeah, I'm not going to be able to, it doesn't look like Meld wants to let me pick up the new window. I'll try one more time. If I can't get it up, we'll just call it a day. Because that's not the window I want. Yeah, melt just is not updating, but I guess we could do this. So that's the Gemini. We'll just go into Studio here, content, edit. Okay, so here we'll go back and forth. Let's start a new tab. That way I can actually go back and forth. Okay, so for the title, do we want this one? Actually, we'll A/B test. Start with this one. And it's perfect for podcasters. Let's go back, find the second title. I like this one. And we'll modify this one. I'm thinking about it. Let's quit Final Cut Pro to see if that makes things a little more snappy on my end. Focusrite Vocaster 2, the best budget interface for podcasters. In 2025. That's a little bit long. I like to keep it like under 65 characters. So we'll just take Vocaster out of it, the best budget interface for podcasters in 2025. Okay, so we'll set that as the test. Now, I won't bore you with me trying to write up the description. I'm not a writer, and it's just going to be AI. What am I doing? These are tags. Okay, so this will go in equipment. It's not made for kids. No altered content. Tags. We'll do the timestamps. Okay, so those timestamps aren't right. Okay, that looks better. This is why we always have to double check the work. I mean, those timestamps at least look a little more realistic as far as when they occurred. Let's go back to the description. Let's try the description again. Basically, I'm asking it to ask me questions to ensure we're on the same page before trying to write it again. It's too hype heavy. The description should tell the viewer what the video is about or what they should expect from it. It shouldn't be a summary, but a general overview. Use bullet points for the specific takeaways. So hopefully this gets us a little bit closer. In this video, I'm revisiting the Focusrite Vocaster 2 to discuss why it might be the most overlooked audio interface for content creators right now. When Focusrite originally released the Vocaster line, they priced it at a premium that made it hard to recommend over the standard Scarlett 2i2. However, the current market, and specifically the pricing for Black Friday 2025, has completely changed the value proposition. That's a little bit better. work for this. That's better than what I could come up with. The only thing I hate is that I have to manually add the bullet points because it doesn't copy over. Then I need my affiliate link. Focusrite Vocaster. The Vocaster page, that's what I want. I'll just copy that. And I'll have to find the link for the other video. That's the one I want. Copy the link. Okay, so that should be good now. Add cards. I know it gave me the timestamp. I closed Final Cut Pro, so we're going to rely on that timestamp it gave us. $627. I have a more in-depth video here. Okay, so that's pretty close. Then for an end screen, one video and one playlist. Leave best for the viewer. And then for the playlist, we'll go with equipment. Let me know if you... We'll start those right there. And then that's where I'm going to end things, because now I have to go in and create the thumbnail.